Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of Love Hurts. This is a new action comedy starring Huy Quan, Academy Award-winning Huy Quan, who plays Marvin, a mild-mannered realtor who's very good at his job and very cheerful and very upbeat, but he has a secret, which is that he used to work for a criminal organization led by his own brother. Has basically their enforcer, their killer, and that life comes slamming back into his current life thanks to the arrival of Rose, played by Ariana DeBose. She is on the run. There are people out to get her. She goes looking for Marvin, and once more he has to show what he's capable of, whether he likes it or not, while trying to maintain the stability of the life that he has created. After winning his Oscar, Huy Quan was in the second season of Loki in a very fun supporting role, but this is his first time as the lead ever, and obviously coming off of this amazing, well-earned comeback. He is so charming, and he is so likable, all of which is on display in this movie. I just wish the movie itself, kind of lived up to that charisma, that charm that he brings. This is a movie that never quite works. It almost works at points, but yeah, it doesn't quite click together. I was really nervous a couple minutes in, I think almost immediately, actually, when we are introduced to Ariana DeBose's character, and she is drawing a mustache on a realtor ad for Huy Quan's character, and there is a very ADR'd, obviously added in later laugh that her character is giving. You don't see her lips because, they did it later, and it's such a weird moment because the laugh doesn't sound real or present in the moment. It also doesn't sound appropriate. She's like cackling while just drawing a mustache on a guy. And I was like, what's going on here? This isn't feeling right. And then the opening scenes, which are all meant to establish what a great life Marvin is living and, how he's approaching everything with such an upbeat manner and really kind of giving his philosophy on what it means to be a success. And it's supposed to be light and fluffy and funny, but it doesn't come together. It's not finding that tone it's going for. And I was really nervous that this movie was going to be a real disaster. And I guess my light praise is it's not a total disaster. It's, I guess, watchable at points. And the first time there is a fight scene that breaks out, I go, okay, here comes the energy. And there it is. Because the fight scene is really good and clever and creative. But the movie keeps kind of back and forth, kind of coming into this slog, and bits are maybe a little amusing, but very rarely truly funny. I did laugh out loud, a handful of times at things I was meant to laugh at, but too often I felt like they're, really working to make me laugh, but it's not really happening. This is another movie from 87 North, a production company that has a really interesting background, formed by people from the stunt community with a stunt background in both, doing it themselves and training. And they both produce movies, but they also train actors and big movie stars to look credible on screen in fight scenes and do a terrific job doing that. The movies they've made, I think, have been a mixed bag. There's the John Wick series, which are freaking awesome. And then there's other films like Bullet Train and Nobody and last year's The Fall Guy and Atomic Blonde. And some are better than others. But I think tonally, too many of them feel a little too similar. John Wick really feels like the outlier here by going for a more serious tone. Obviously, John Wick exists in an outlandish, ridiculous world when you really analyze it. But its tone, its approach, it feels so cool. It has such an edge to it. And I'm not saying that an action movie needs that to be good. There are plenty that are lighthearted and genuinely funny. But I feel like a lot of the other 87 North stuff is kind of going for the same tone with, results that don't always pan out. And I was someone who thought The Fall Guy last year was another attempt where it was like some of it was good, but a lot of it, felt like it could have been cut back or, wasn't quite connecting. This is more of that to me, and honestly, its rate of success was lower than The Fall Guy. The director here is Jonathan Usebi, who is one of the guys who has kind of come up with this team at 87 North. He's worked on a lot of their movies. He has an amazing background in stunt work and stunt coordination, but as a director, I think he feels like a first-time director, and there is some clunkiness to this movie. And yeah, it just, the sense of humor isn't really meshing. And then even some of the fight scenes, they are wonderfully choreographed. And you can see that, Huy Quan, who obviously has a background doing fight scenes in other films, he just won an Oscar for a movie where he did fight scenes. He is doing a lot of it on camera, and that's awesome. And there is a lot of cool beats in those action scenes, but I actually think that sometimes they're not directed as good as they could be. It's not shaky cam, right? It's not like the Bourne sequels that did sort of that super shaky cam, but there's a jittery cam feel to some of this. It's bouncing around a little too much, the camera. And there were times where I did want it to kind of maybe be a little more static. Let us see what's happening a little bit cleaner to better appreciate it, to better admire what was obviously a lot of hard work in creating and crafting these fight scenes. And sometimes it still works. Sometimes you're still like, well, that was awesome. That was a super fun beat. That was a super fun move. Feels like there was a lot of Jackie Chan inspiration here as far as using the environment and, what's around you, what could be picked up and incorporated into the fight. And some of that does provide some of the best humor in the movie. And this is a very R-rated movie. It actually doesn't feel like it might be, but then it does kind of go there and have some things that are meant to make you wince in a humorous way. And some of that, is some of the more entertaining aspects of the movie. But a lot of it, just kind of feels off. It feels like it's not quite finding its feet. There is a budding love story here between Ke Huy Quan's character and Ariana DeBose, and that doesn't really work. They don't really have good chemistry together. Also, they're like 20 years apart in age, which is, if they're going to do that, I feel like you have to at least acknowledge it. They don't. Yes, he's a youthful 53, but he's still 53. And all the actors are bringing their charisma and talent, but just feeling like diminished results versus what we've seen in other projects. Like Marshawn Lynch is in this movie, who is so freaking funny in Bottoms, which is also like one of my favorite comedies of the past decade, and is amazingly funny in that movie and improvised a lot of really funny stuff in that movie. And he is amusing in this movie, and he has a couple of okay parts, okay lines. But I feel like, well, I've seen that guy be so much funnier. This is just not spotlighting him in the way that we know he is capable of. And I said Ariana DeBose and Ke Huy Quan don't have great chemistry. I mean, I think she's good. People have kind of been hard on her because she hasn't had great movies after she won the Oscar for West Side Story. She was in Argyle and Craven. And so there's a lot of like, oh, who's her agent who's picking this? But, that happens to a lot of people after the Oscars. It's funny that we're talking about this just a couple weeks after Star Trek Section 31 came out, starring Ke Huy Quan's on-screen wife in the movie that he and she won an Oscar for, Michelle Yeoh. I'm not too hard on Ariana DeBose. I mean, hey, like Wish, it's mediocre. It's not great. Who would lament her taking that movie, a Disney animated movie with the creators of Frozen? It just didn't pan out. Some of the others, you do feel like maybe Hollywood does have to give these people better offers after they win their Oscar. Although you should watch Schmigadoon if you haven't. Great comedy musical series, and she's in that. But she's fine. I think she's having fun kind of playing this gruff, tough woman with, she's kind of giving a lot of attitude, but it's a fairly one-note character. And I wasn't buying into the, possible love story between them. The better budding love story is a subplot. And that's the one involving Leo Tipton, who plays the assistant to Ke Huy Quan's character Marvin at the real estate company, and this other hitman played by Mustafa Shakir, and how she reads the poetry that he writes, and she falls for the poetry and she falls for him, and they keep cutting back to the two of them having these very earnest heart-to-hearts. And that is a very funny part of the movie. Like, that is the part that I feel like kind of lands the tone the rest of the movie is trying for but not accomplishing. And is the relationship I was most invested in by the end. But it's meant to be a subplot, so that's a problem when it's kind of like, that's the part I'm more interested in maybe than what's happening at the center. And there is things that, are okay and fun peppered throughout this movie. There is a nice little small role played by Drew Scott, kind of sending up who he is in real life as a property brother. Sean Astin is in the movie playing Ke Huy Quan's boss. Of course, it innately feels good to see two Goonies reunited on screen, and I liked Sean Astin in the couple scenes he's in. There's all these like decent elements and moments that click and work. It just doesn't hold. It doesn't continue enough throughout the movie to make it feel satisfying by the end. And so, yeah, I can't say that this is like a good movie, and I can't say run out and see it. I do think if you're kind of just in that mood of like, I just want to lay back and watch, something silly where people punch and kick each other, okay. It does have that, and the kicking and punching is pretty good. So it does have that going for it. But it doesn't help also that this opening right at the same time has Heart Eyes, because I don't think I mentioned that this movie is set at Valentine's Day, right? It like leans into that and into Marvin and his sort of earnestness, and that's going to kind of be reflected in the fact that it's Valentine's Day, and maybe this is a love story, except that Heart Eyes is such a better, R-rated, ultra-violent movie that is also mixing in a romance, and trying to kind of be winky about the earnestness of that. I think you have a much, much stronger version of that with Heart Eyes, and the fact that I saw these movies back-to-back nights kind of really reflected that for me. So, yeah, I wish the best for Ke Huy Quan. I hope he gets another lead role. I don't want this to be the one and only one, and just sort of this outlier in his career. I mean, I think he's going to keep getting cast and things because he deserves to be. But this is like the spotlight movie he's getting at the moment. And yeah, it's not living up to the talent and the likability he brings. And then looking at 87 North's movies, it's funny because they haven't been around that long. They haven't made that many movies. But they made Nobody, which is a much better version of the same kind of story about mild-mannered guy in suburbia is actually an amazingly talented killer, and his old life catches up with him. So it's funny that they're one that already kind of repeating that story. I know that's been done in other movies, but still feels like maybe they shouldn't already be going to that well again. But also, they already did it much better. And in a movie that I think is just more well-rounded than this one is. So yeah, unfortunately, can't really recommend Love Hurts, but let's treat our Oscar-winning actors better, Hollywood. Let's do better with the follow-up. I know this is kind of a classic tale with some of the people who win Oscars and then have some follow-ups that aren't, living up to that, not potential. They already achieved the potential. They won the freaking Oscar, but the talent that we know they have. So we'll see what the future holds for this cast. I hope only good things because there's a lot of great people here. All right, guys, if you could like and subscribe, that would be great. Thank you so much. Take care.